Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming. I'd like to welcome you to this session. It is different. It is going to be partly screening and partly discussion. So please stay and until the end of the film. It is going to take about 25 minutes. And after that, we are going to have the film director, Sara, المهيري, with us. Please stay around and join us to the discussions. Enjoy the film. إن شاء الله حد.
Arabia is a land of terrible heat and terrible bareness. A tract of desert as big as Western Europe, practically untouched by the world until a few years ago. To anybody who doesn't live there, it seems a land of mystery and romance, full of the exotic promise of the veil.
My name is Sara Mheiri. I am from Dubai. I'm 8 years old. And I'm sorry, the fact that you're here and I'm putting on this accent and I'm dressed like this.
This was a movie I had made back in 2014 about stereotypes. I had just moved to America for university and realized that people had no clue where I was from. On a daily basis, I was getting asked questions about my camels, my future arranged marriage, and how my father would beat me. I was getting tired of the ignorance because despite making them Google Dubai or UAE, all the images were from the Western perspective. So every time I went back home, I'd film almost every aspect of my life to show them that we were pretty modern people. I managed to debunk all the stereotypes except for one, the traditional Emirati woman. A woman like my grandmother. I had no clue what was real or what was part of the stereotype.
افتح الدبة. لا الدبة.
لا تحية من
اوكي.
انت ولدك يعني بعد شو نسوي؟ بالضبط انا شايف الموز من يومين يمكن فوق 12 موز في المله.
وين منو كل هذه؟
والله عاد ما اعرف.
انا ما واحد في اليوم.
انا كليت واحد بس اليوم. The whole week I did.
والله في سبان في البيت من دسحه ما ادري له. عيالك ياكلون.
You see, in United Arab Emirates, it is in our culture that every Friday we have lunch at our grandparents' house. My grandmother Alia, however, is my only living grandparent. She is my dad's mom. But since I've been away for the past 6 years, I only make that lunch once or twice a year. But I still try to film her.
كل شيء وامس ماخذين
لا صور ورا.
يحطون كونديشن ده صوري
ما صورنا.
Obviously, it never worked out. So this year, I decided to spend the summer at her house, trying to learn as much as possible about her whilst trying to make a movie. You see, the only other mainstream documentary I'd seen representing women like her was a 1980s British-made, slightly racist documentary that just attributed to what everyone else thought we were like. It had been over 2 weeks and my grandmother was still refusing to be on camera. So, instead I decided to remake the British documentary, but from an Emirati's perspective, in the hope of also learning more about my grandmother's life.
There's still a sort of biblical rhythm about it. If you want to know what the loaves looked like in the Bible parable, here they are, baking in Arabia today just as they did 2,000 years ago on the shores of Galilee.
صح شيء؟ ايوه بعد فرديها اكثر شوي بعد.
Later on, when I showed my father this footage, he told me it wasn't the bread my grandmother used to make. So I asked him to be my new tour guide and show me what their lives were like. So he took me to his childhood home.
شوف اذا في سكيك انا ما لا
نمشي احسن؟
لا ما امشي، ما اعرف المنطقه انا الحين. صار انا صار لي 30 سنه هنا ما جيت. اذكر بعض الملامح لكن وهذا البيت كان هو البيت القديم. هذا هنا تهدم، هذا الشجار، هذه المنطقة كله تهدم طبعا، ما بقى. طلعت الشجار ما يبين. قبل كم سنة كان يبين، حاليا اختفى.
شو احساسك هاي؟
ما هالحياة كذا سيلافي. ما في الدنيا كذا، ايش كيف ازعل؟
يعني ايش كان بيتكم؟
لا هذا بيتنا العمارة للآخر، يعني في يعني تكلم اقول اراضي صغيرة يعني.
اصبر مو فاهمة، ها بيتكم من
هذا بيت يدي. كان في حجر ومخازن وهذا مسجد يدي، وهذاك بيت ابوي.
As much as I wanted to connect with what my father was saying about his life and his history, I was genuinely confused. He was saying tent, but in my mind, a tent is made from fabric. But he was describing it differently. Conveniently, though, my grandmother was having a somewhat replica of their old house being built in her backyard.
كنا ذاك الوقت يمكن 5 أخت و4 أخوان. قبل أن يولد أخواتي والأخوان الصغار، بعد ما صرنا 9. فكنا نسكن بيت من الساعات على البحر، فكان يدخل ماء البحر يدخل بيتنا، البيت من ساعات، وكان هناك خيمة هي الحجرة الغرفة الرئيسية هي اللي نعتبرها، فيها سرير واحد. السرير ينام فيه الوالد والوالدة، واحنا كنا الصغار ننام على الأرض.
يعني كيف كنتوا تسبحون واقف؟
نسبح في البحر.
في البحر؟
ايه، نطلع الصبح ما في لا حمامات ولا شيء. الرجال الحريم يطلعون ويا الفجر عشان يكون ظلام ما حد يشوفهم. الرجال يروحون طبعا اللي يصلون الفجر يصلون الفجر او قبل الفجر. اما نحن الاولاد ممكن نتاخر، ما عندنا مشكله. فكان كله على البحر بالنسبة للناس اللي في البر نفس القضية يعني، ما في حمامات، ما في شاورات، ما في شيء.
خبرني عن شو كانت تسوي من الصبح لين في الليل، شو تتذكر؟
ابوي كان يروح، ابوي ترك السفر وانا كنت كبير يعني، كنت شوي افهم. كان يسافر زمان وانا كنت صغير ما اذكر، يروح افريقيا ويروح سواحل افريقيا.
اذا تغير يعني الموسم عليهم ما يقدرون يجون. شفت السونامي اللي يضرب في المنطقه في المحيط الهندي وبحر العرب، فهم ما يقدرون يجون من هناك، ما عندهم مكاين على شراع على هواء، فيظلون هناك. في ناس يتزوجوا ويبون عيال، فطبعا تعرفين احنا صغار، فامي يعني الله يطول عمرها هي اللي كانت تربينا، وهي اللي كانت يعني هي مثابة الأب ومثابة الأم.
كنت مولود هنا في هالبيت؟
أنا ما أعرف، يا ولدت هنا، ولدت في المخزن.
مو في المستشفى؟
ما لا طبعا أيامي مهم، إحنا ما حد يولد في المستشفى، فكانت تيجي وحدة اسمها الداية هي اللي تولد الوالدة، فأنا هنا ولدت في هذا المنطقة.
وين الحشيش؟
يعني هذا الحشيش كان هنا بيت قديم، بيت من الجص الصخور البحرية والرمل يبنونه. كان بيت كبير إلى قبل كم سنة، بس أنا ما جيت.
My father then asked me to take a photo of him in front of his old house.
اصبر ما اعطيتني
اسمك والله سارة، شو تركزين الحين؟ ابغى صورة بس انا، تعالي هنا.
زين ما اعطيتني فرصة.
ما ابغى بروفيشنال، ابغى صورة عادية.
زين بس انا ابغى صورة.
To my father, it was just a photograph. But to me, this was part of my history. Something to show my younger siblings and maybe kids, to explain what his life was like. I didn't want them to end up in the same situation I did with my grandparents. Imagine having to show my future daughter what Emirati women were like using this.
The women are the most conservative force of all, secluded, unchanging, uneducated and fatalistic. They accept their lot meekly and they do their duty faithfully as the handmaidens and chattels of men.
After a month at my grandmother's, I realized that if I ever did get to interview her, I wouldn't have any visuals to show what her life was like. I myself was struggling, which is why I decided to make my own.
Oh, that looks horrible.
Should I do it?
No, it's okay. This wig costs a lot of money.
Really?
No.
حكشوها.
أمي راوتني كيف يسكروا.
صدق؟ That's so. Oh my god. That's so cool. I actually like it. Miss, why does Ummi have like أصفر على خشمها?
أصفر؟
Yeah, like.
بنفسجي.
No.
ها.
Oh, hey.
بنفسجي؟
Yeah.
لأنه what the material is made out of used to be how.
Will I get that? No. Oh my god. I'm wearing this forever. Wait, can I remove هذا الشيء?
لا ممكن تقولين؟
لا عشان I'm scared if it goes in the food.
بعدين هم شي كانوا ياكلون، جربي تاكلي مثلهم.
شليت already.
لا جربي تاكلي مثلهم.
ليش؟
Just try.
How am I supposed to eat food with this?
شو؟
In my face.
خشيني شي تحت حاجز. تحت البر يعني سوري.
تحت حاجزي.
3 months at my grandmother's house and still no interview. So my mother, who just had knee surgery, decided to guilt her into it.
عقب كيف يوم جابت عيال حياتها عقب وين الريتشنج مثلا البيتيز لا بس انا هو عارف يعني شو احساسها يعني بعد عني انا كيف عشان انا فاهمه ان احنا ما شو نتكلم عنه اخاف يصير قفل الباب مسكره ما شيء جرس ما في شيء
لا انا قلت لحين ماما علي قافله الباب انتي وين الرد دبي بعد الحين جايين
والله ما ادري يا دين اصبركم وشياكم
عاد وين جايت لك وريدي بعد مخيوطه بس حق البنات
زين شو اقول؟
احنا بنسالك اسئله.
انا بسالك حق مستعجله شو اقول؟ ما تعرفين شو تقولي.
امي الله يخليك اوريدي جاهز.
لا ما بحد يحبني.
انا احبك
والله العظيم والله حبي ريلك باكر والله ابدا ولا ادري امي والدتني امي جايبني فرفرين
ما شاء الله كم جايبه؟
وايد جايبه ماتوا موز وماتت شيخه واللي عاقتنش كثر تقول عاقه وقبل معرسه بعد
هي معرسه
هي خالتي تقول 2 ماخذ واحد سالم ويجيب عيال مات ولدها وما ادري
وين عيل هالعيال؟
ما تون عنها
يوم ربيت انتي في البيت صغيره وياها بنيه معاها في البيت شو كنتي تسوين؟
والله شو اسوي قبل ما افهم وعقب قمت اطبخ تعلمتني اطبخ واخم واسوي وهذا وعقب جوزتني ريل هي جوزتني قبل صغيره انا حتى العاده ما جتني جوزوني حمد من عبد الله اسمه وانا ما افهم وما تميت عنده سنة بس
متزوجينها صغيرة وأنا واحد وقال لهم ما عندي حرمة ترى هو عنده حرمة يوم طلع عنده حرمة يده ما طاعت خذتها أنا ما طاعت قالت لا طلقها يصيح يبغيها لا يطلقها وأبوي يبغيها هي بعد
وأنا ما أفهم صدق ما أفهم يوم يتجوزني صغيرة حتى العادة ما جتني عقب اللي سنت ما طلقني بيطلقني يتني العادة تميت ويا علي مرة وخطب قلت ما بعرس ولزم أبوي وملت بيه أبوي على علي وتميت السنة وحملت بعبد الله.
تربين بس في البيت ها؟
في البيت ايوه.
هيك تضل كيف خبرينا انا اول ما ولدتي بعبد الله كيف كان؟
أول ما ولدت بعبد الله دقبيل ويتنا سكينة ويحطون هاي مثل شي حطبة يرزونها حطبة وتيودينها تيودين الحطبة يوم تيودين الحطبة شوية وهذيك مسوية صرار تحطها مع الرمل تحطها تحتك من عني يكون الولد يطيح قدام تحط رملة هاتيها وتزنتين وهنتين يودن مني حرمة مني حرمات حيدي انت ما ربيتي كذا ما خبرتك امك؟
معودي قالت لي جدتي
هي مني حرمة يود والداية ورا ما شاء الله عليهم شي يطيحون احد في مخزن صغير وشايفه غيلان يجون سلطوا علي غيلان مربيه وكل قولها الطول تخليه من اليدار وحلفت يا ما ربي دقبيل وياه
ضحك اخوي يمنه
تصيحين تعذبوا يعني انا اتذكر ابيك تقول لي كانت تقول لي مات الضنا في بطنها 3 أيام يود العصا
هذه صبري تصيح
تقول ازنك الياه الميت في بطني وما
الياه ما يطيح يوم ميت
ليش على العصا شي؟
هي نحطيها عصا نزانت على العصا
ليش على العصا انا ما اعرف ليش ما تطيحون
لا لا بيصير ندوج تبي يرتفع في فوق. اي قبل ما عندهم مخ وايد ماتوا يا ولد الكبد ما قدروا ينزلونه.
في يوم ابوي علي كان يسافر بعد في المحمل.
اي سافر.
وانت تتمين روحك؟
لا عند امي. ما ظهرت انا عند امي.
يصير يتم كم شهر؟
بيصير والله يوم تضرب الخبة يتمون. صار عندنا الكويت بعد.
كم تم يعني؟
تم سنة في الكويت.
سنة كاملة؟
سنة كاملة في الكويت.
قبل يوم تحمل هي بخويا عبد الله يرحمه لين جابته 7 شهور 8 شهور ويا عقب شافه ما شاف ولده. يوم يمشي يوم يجي.
وانت يتم يصير عندك بالاربع شهور.
هي عند امي. انا ما في بيت ما بيت عندنا خيمتنا عند امي.
يعني عشان يوم ما تظهرين ان امك ما كانت تخليك تظهرين؟
لا روحي ما داني. روحي ما داني.
هي ما تخليك؟
لا ما تخصها.
يوزتك صغيرة؟
يوزاني ابوي الله يرحمه صغير.
يوزتك قبل وانت صغيرة؟
اي صغير ما يتني العادة حتى.
ما فرقتي ما خفتي؟
لا ما افتهم يوم هذا قال من قلت شيء لا احط لك 60 في مصرت.
منو هذا؟
هو اللي عرست خدته اول بادئ. ما تقولي شيء ما قلت شيء كشف سكتيت ما اقول شيء. هي
اذا قلتي شيء
اي قال روع ماشي 60 كان نحن يعني ما قرينا ولا افتهمنا. هذا هو قدر الحريم ماشي. ما فرشت تعالي بصوب يوم بفرش يمي. ما في افراش.
هذا انا بحركه.
هذا حطه لا خليه
ما حركه؟
لا يحطون كنديسة. شوفي يحطون كنديسة بعدين بيحطون كنديسة ركبوها. شو طاعي شو منه سارة شو منه؟
هذا حق الدياي اللي انت كنتي تشرحين.
At first I was confused to why she had made the tent in her backyard, because it seemed like a constant reminder of such hard times. But I guess in a way, we are both preserving the past by creating something concrete. My grandmother is a confusing woman, because I never knew where she stood. She has the ability to see the positive and negative of anything, and have such strong feelings for both sides.
سألت عن سارة أمي، شو رأيك في سارة؟ يعني أنت الأيام أول والحين هالبنية غير، سارة تدرس في أمريكا، شو رأيك في الكلام إن سارة تدرس برا حياة غير؟
احنا قبل نقول تستقوى البنية وتبغى تصير.
زين.
سيرين عنا احنا قبل الأولية ما يبغون البنية تظهر من البيت. يوزونها غير وتم في البيت. ها بيصير نسميها زبة هاي سايرة. من يوم صغير لبسونا وقايها وعقب مستويت العباء حطينا عروسنا العباء مال البحرين مال الكويت مثل اليواني.
أنا عباسة.
على اليواني. الحين لا احنا نقول زبات الحين استوى البنات. هاي بناديها. اي والصحون لا نجي مع الاول. وايد كسرت. امسايه كسرت.
شو توصينها زين؟ وصلت اليد حق حفيدة. يلا وصيها قولي.
انا اقول لهم يتحملي من عمرك يوم بتصيرين وهذا وعرسي وخلي ويسي في البيت. هاي نصيحتي انا. شوف هاي كل شيء آلاته يوم يعدلوني حلو هكذا ما الاول. البنات ارتكن ما بقبل يبوزوهن وهن صغار. حلو زين لو خلونا مثل سارة.
يعني لو حصلت تسيرين امريكا قبل
بس كل مكان لو ما بامريكا لو اسير هنا
شو
خلاص اخيرا قوم يحب امك على راسه. انا بعد بقول
يلا حبيبي.
طيب
Of course, this doesn't mean that the old Arabia has disappeared in the space of the last few years. It's still a hard land that breeds a hard people. From now on, its people will have to face, like the rest of us, the infinite hopes, possibilities, and disillusionments of the modern, universal world.
Such a beautiful film. Thank you so much, Sara.
Thank you.
Very creative and very well done. There is a translation, by the way, if somebody wants a headset.
Thank you to everyone who came to see the movie, by the way. Really, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to our session today. I would like you to join me in welcoming Sara Mheiri, the creator of this amazing film. And before we start, just allow me to first briefly tell you a little bit about Sara. Sara is an independent filmmaker and curator from the United Arab Emirates, who specializes in artistic experiences through film and art, exploring culture and tradition in the UAE. She holds an MA from the University College of London for ethnology and documentary studies, and earned a bachelor's degree in journalism and film at Northeastern University in the US. When Sara is not curating immersive exhibitions such as Khaliginess, she is creating short films such as Yado and I, the film that you just saw, and exploring topics of female Emiratis and traditions that create the culture or form the culture. Sara, it seems that this film is a schoolwork. It was part of a class requirement. It was part of ethnography and a documentary class. How did you apply what you learned to this film?
Yeah, so I should start by saying, I always wanted to make documentary films about my family, but it's very hard to approach. So I used the thesis for my master's documentary as an excuse to film the family. I was saying, like, either you let me film you or I fail. So that's how I got away with it. So that was the intention when I first applied for the master's, was to create a film like this. You know.
And technically, how did you apply the research and the approach to the film, that what you learned in the class to this film?
It was really great because it wasn't just film a movie. You had to learn the intention, the camera work, the editing style. And, I had a mentor with me personally who was with me during the months when I couldn't film my grandmother, and I was saying, like, I don't know what to do, should I give up? And he was saying, no, this is part of the process. And it also helped the research beforehand, such as the movie that I put in the film, the classic from the 1960s, which was a great research and, made my intention to make this film even stronger.
Okay. So that film was shot with another camera, another format?
The older film, the archive? Yeah, it's much older. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but that archive is not your work. It
No,
is,
no.
Yeah, and how did you acquire that film?
It took a lot of talking to and convincing, and then I saw the laws that you could use it if you're using it for, a university program, and if you're using it to not just show, you're not ripping it off, you're using it to compare and contrast, the questions that you're asking and the things that you're showing.
Yeah.
So it's.
I'm asking you because your film can be described as a commentary.
Yes.
On the Road to Progress,
Yeah.
Documentary that was made by a British company in 1980 about the life in Arabia, and it was unfortunately full of prejudice and stereotypes.
Yeah.
Tell us about your thoughts when
Yeah.
you saw that film for the first time,
Yeah.
and the reasons behind having it or choosing it as a parallel in your story.
Yeah. So when I was doing the research for my movie, this is the only film I could find that had proper footage of women in the UAE during that time period, of my grandmother's time period. And the film itself is great. They captured a lot of beautiful images and great moments from our culture. But when it came to women, it was incredibly racist, and you can tell that they barely tried, and it really frustrated me because when you meet my grandmother and other women from that generation, you could have approached them, but they just chose not to and just made them seem, okay, yeah, they weren't all educated, but there was no reason for this completely polarizing image of uneducated, afraid, etc. I had asked my grandmother, what would you do if they had asked you, if you wanted to be on camera back then? And she was like, we were never really approached by the British. It was more the men. We were just stared at, and they just took photographs without even asking us. And I thought that was an interesting thing, I had the inside view, whereas, that's a big thing here. When people come, they just take pictures, not even asking for permission of our culture. And there's no problem to it. You can, but just ask for permission. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Unfortunately, it reminds me of an article I read long time ago about the Aborigines in Australia and how they are portrayed.
Yeah.
And it is just a sad thing to see how the people here also were portrayed in these films.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Your film is a family film. We see your mother, your father, your sister, Noor, and of course your grandmother. How did you convince all these people to be involved in this film?
Nobody wanted to be on camera in the beginning. I had moved to Ras Al Khaimah for, as I said, 3 months, and no one wanted to be on camera. They just saw me, and they were like, just go film on the streets. Okay, we'll figure it out later. And month after month, they saw my frustration, where I was saying, people were telling me these amazing stories and showing me pictures and everything, but off camera. I was getting so frustrated. So honestly, it was a lot of crying, a lot of begging. And then, yeah, mashallah, alhamdulillah, the whole family, you saw my mother, the interview wouldn't have happened without my mother. My father, I just kind of begged him. And then my uncle, who I never would have guessed would be on camera, just came to the house. He was like, I saw how angry you were, how upset. Yalla, if you want the story to be, I see you're doing the story. If you want it to be done right, let me at least say it, because clearly your father has no idea. Okay. Anything. And then my grandmother, it was the day before I left to London to finish off my master's degree. So I had already packed my bags, I had given up, and I was just like, you know what, that's it. And the whole family, even my aunts, uncles, you don't see them, but behind my grandmother, there's 40 people all listening to the story too. So it was a very interesting experience.
And did they have a say in the outcome of the film?
Yeah, but it's a give and take. I understood. What's nice is that because this is a family movie and it is a private moment that, these are really private moments that I'm showing, it is a compromise. And there's things that I did 4 years ago in this movie that I probably wouldn't have shown today, and there's things I would have filmed more, and I wish I had the strength to show, but I think it was a great experience just to get these interviews in general. I'm very grateful. Like, you know.
Okay. So you are not going to share with us what did they ask you to remove out of the film?
I can't. This film was already shown to my family, and it was the most terrifying thing. So, you know.
Did your grandmother see it?
She doesn't care. I tried to show it to her, and she was like, "Go show these white people, يعني, what you want to show them." But I said, you know, to her, she tries to ignore it. But she's happy for me. I show her like the reactions to the movie, and she's like, "Okay, thank you." But to her, it's outside of the house, and nothing really matters. It's when you come into the house.
Okay, tell us about the process of the research, the shooting, and then the editing. And I don't know, maybe there are some young filmmakers who want to hear that part.
Yeah. I mean, when I did the research, as I said, this was part of my master's degree, and they'd given me a mentor who was trying to get me to film. She was an Indian woman, so they paired me with someone who they thought could relate, and ironically, we did not relate at all. She kept saying, "Why don't you just film your grandmother without her permission?" And I was saying, "No, because she wears a burqa, and I can't do that." And then she was saying, "Okay, just film your cousins and everyone." And I was like, again, I'm not going to do that. So I had to fly back to England and ask for another mentor who was wonderful. And yeah, so a lot of my process was actually pre-filming. And then filming itself, they had given me a giant camera. I can't remember the name, but it was terrible. Like when I see some of the things on screen, and I wish I was more confident to say I'm more comfortable with a camera that it was smaller. It was like a Fujifilm, but I wish I had the confidence to just say, no, I don't want to. I'd use my own thing. And some of it was even filmed by iPhone, just because it was very last minute. And the editing took months, like about a month or two, just to figure out. The subtitle itself took months, and calling my parents and being like, I don't know what this word means. Like, you know, what's the literal translation? And then, yeah, just the overall process. So I would say like 4 or 5 months was the overall film process.
Yeah. And at what stage you decided that you want to be in the film, taking part inside as a content, you know, in terms of content? At what stage?
Yeah, I think it was when I hit the 2-month mark of not being able to get any footage of my grandmother or anyone. And I was saying, okay, why not make it this film about how hard it is to get access to Emirati families, you know, because it's not an easy thing. We are very private people. And so I was saying, like, I want them to always be on camera, but I don't realize how vulnerable it is to be on camera yourself. So that's when I just decided, okay, let me put myself in the film. And then that kind of helped play the level field, you know, and they kind of saw how I was in the movie, and it made them more comfortable. Because I'm not going to embarrass myself too, you know, like if...
there was a scene with your father. He was taking you to where he was born, and that moment was kind of a displacement.
Yeah.
When, you know, maybe to him, I don't know how that impacted you.
Yeah.
But how did you feel about it? How did you feel about... 2 minutes? Okay.
I would say I don't know, for me, I expected this big Hollywood like moment of us seeing the house, he cries, I cry, you know, like this beautiful moment. But he didn't really care, and he couldn't really find the house. And that's when I realized how important this movie is, because how fast, I mean, he said in the movie, like a few years ago, the house was there and it had been completely gone. He couldn't even find the location. We were there for... You couldn't see, but we were there for 5 hours in the heat, running around. And it really impacted me, and I was like, okay, this is actually really important, because he doesn't care right now, but I know my younger sister and then my kids one day will care, and I'd love to know. I'd love to show them that, you know, UAE is changing so fast. And then, unfortunately, I feel like we're not even able to realize like how fast it's moving, and holding on to those little moments. So, yeah.
My last question to you, and then we are going to open the floor to... No? Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Then this brings us to the end of this talk. But I would like to say a big thank you to you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And to Abu Dhabi International Book Fair. And I would also like to thank the Arabic Language Center for organizing the book fair, the AV team and volunteers, the translator for this event, and the wonderful guest, Sara Mheiri, for adding a lot and for this such fascinating session. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
And thank you to Isabel and the team, please. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Oh.
And I apologize that we ran out of time without giving you the chance to ask any questions, but Sara Mheiri is going to be here around. If you have any questions for her, please feel free to talk to her. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sara.
يبون صورة؟ it's okay. أنت بخير الحمد لله. بخير. شو أخبارك؟